finally said the quiet part out loud. The Book of Mormon could not have come from Joseph Smith. Anyone who reads the book closely and carefully will realize this. So in other words, the Book of Mormon comes from a divine origin, according to thoughtful faith. The Book of Mormon is a literary masterpiece. Scholars are still finding intertextuality not seen before. Whether you believe it's divine or not, it's one of the greats of American literature. I've taught it for 25 years, and there are not words to describe my feelings for it. One of the accusations I've presented against Mormons as of late is that Joseph Smith clearly plagiarized the King James Version when constructing his Book of Mormon. And here are your basic kind of responses to that from the Mormons. Andrea says, "I love it when lies are used as some sort of gotcha." Nathan AM in the morning says, "The Book of Mormon plagiarizes the Bible," unquote. Debunked long ago. Get something new. And this is pretty representative of what I see. It's ridiculous, it's a lie, it's been debunked, has no basis in reality, you're a liar, you're of the devil, etc., etc. These are just two examples of this kind of attitude. But is it true? Is there justification for this response? Is it true that Joseph Smith did plagiarize the King James Version of the Bible? Let's find out. So here's a little graph. It was not constructed by me, it's constructed by, I obtained it from anyway, the CES website. I'll provide a link in the details of this video. I highly recommend you review that website, educate yourself on the website, it is very good. But here are just a few examples of commonalities between the King James Version of the Bible and the Book of Mormon. I think I'm not a Greek scholar, I'm not a Hebrew scholar. I can't really confirm what is and is not a correct translation. I have to rely on Bible versions, I have to rely on the research of other scholars. It's not something that I can prove in and of itself based on my own knowledge. But what I can tell you is that the Book of Mormon does contain all of these peculiar choices that the King James Bible made. And when I say Book of Mormon, I mean the original Book of Mormon from 1830. The Book of Mormon since then has made a few changes, but the vast majority of these problems still exist. So, for example, we have King James Version of Isaiah, chapter 2, verse 9, versus the Book of Mormon, 2 Nephi, chapter 12, verses 9. The part of the sentence we're worried about is the clause, "and the mean man boweth down." According to the graph, the correct translation is "not down." And the mean man boweth not down. And upon all pleasant pictures, according to the graph, it should say image or ships or craft. I've reviewed a large number of Bible versions. I went through about 23, and only three translations use the phrase "upon all pleasant pictures," which is, of course, the King James Version, the Jubilee Bible, and the Webster Bible. All other translations, they say things like "upon all beautiful sloops," "upon all beautiful ships," translations like that. A few of them say images, but only three match all pleasant pictures that you find in the King James Version and the Book of Mormon. Here we get a tale of two Mormons with different opinions. According to Andre, The translation from the Book of Mormon that says "boweth not down" is correct. Even the King James Version of the Bible, which was translated in 1611, literally 290 years before the publication of the Book of Mormon, got this wrong. So the problem here is he's not paying attention to the arguments. You'll see this in a second. Nathan A.M. says, so the first one is a correct translation. So in other words, "boweth down" is the correct translation. According to every Bible on the planet, I checked to be a blue letter Bible, strike 1. None of that is true. Just check the second one. Strong's Concordance agrees with the Book of Mormon King James Version. Seems the third one I'm done. Typical anti-Mormon CRAP. Okay, so the only problem is the only book he didn't bother to check, Nathan A.M., is the modern Book of Mormon.
Joseph Smith was called a prophet. Dum 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 dum.
So on the left, today's Book of Mormon, it says, "And the mean man boweth not down." In the original Book of Mormon, it says, "And the mean man boweth down." So Andre, he makes the mistake of not bothering to look at the original Book of Mormon. He goes, I guess he went to the LDS website, looked at the most recent version, and stopped thinking. So that's why he's wrong. And then Nathan A.M., he looks at every version of the Bible, allegedly, except the Book of Mormon. So either the translation, either the 1830 version is correct, or is the modern Book of Mormon correct? We can't be sure. These guys are split. And then for the second point, as I said before, the Book of Mormon and the King James Version are in the minority. The vast number of translations don't use that verbiage. Only the King James Version, the Jubilee, and the Webster Bible use the phrase "upon all pleasant pictures." Now, again, we need to go back and remember, what is the argument, right? It's not really an argument about whether all of these are absolutely wrong. We can say that they're minority positions. We can say some of them are wrong, some of them are weird, but what we can definitely say for sure is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 times in one graph, the Book of Mormon just happens to have the same translation choice as the King James Bible. And that King James Bible makes decisions that modern translators do not. How do the Mormons react to that? Well, they fall to pieces.
You idiot! You bluffed with nothing. No races, nothing.
Nathan A.M. on the left, he says, did they copy some errors from the King James Version? It seems very likely.
Was that fast? I thought that was fast.
Andreas, he says, this means nothing. Immediately, the updated Book of Mormon did correct this error. Immediately, I don't know, maybe geological time. The first edition of the Book of Mormon was made in 1830. The next edition, where they started making changes, was 1837. I don't know, 7 years immediate. And also, it's not true. A lot of the errors are still there, and you're going to see some more in a second. But he goes on. Immediately, the Book of Mormon did correct this error, but it does not mean that Joseph Smith was a false prophet of God. You try creating a text in less than 3 months in a single draft without any errors. Okay, so a little bit of pushback by me, just looking at item 1 and 2, Not Down and Image Chips Craft, and both of these guys who told me it's just lies, there's no plagiarism, debunked, they both admit that there are errors in the Book of Mormon.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
And they come from the King James Version. It seems very likely, according to Nathan A.M. He goes on. He says that's because the original manuscript had a few spelling, grammar, and dictation messes, nothing major, but they evidently relied on the King James Version to help sort things out. And then Nathan A.M. he goes on, still on the left, plagiarizing. You can't plagiarize Isaiah, so he's already losing the point of the argument. It's not that Smith was plagiarizing Isaiah, it's that Smith was plagiarizing the King James Version of Isaiah. Anyway, he goes on, they relied on the King James Version of the Bible to help. On the right, Nathan A.M., he starts to malfunction even further. There's no question about that. Some of the errors may have been coincidental, e.g., for example, the Book of Mormon author may have missed the same word, or they got their text from an ancient source which missed that word and was passed down to much later generations. Not a coincidence. So think about this for a second. Some of the errors may have been coincidental, but then in his example, it transforms into not a coincidence. And it appears what he's saying is that the King James Version may have been used coincidentally, not a coincidence, to fill in the gaps. I'm not 100% sure. He was rambling. And then he goes on, the Book of Mormon text is in 15th century English, written as if by a native of that era. The translation was very carefully controlled, rigidly 15th century, like a time traveler. Fluent in 1400s English came to translate. When it's similar to the King James of the Bible, that's why. Okay, so, Smith was translating, for 3 months in the year 1829, not the 1400s. So why would God translate what is supposed to be Reformed Egyptian? I haven't mentioned that before, but according to the Book of Mormon, the original language was in Reformed Egyptian. And this translation from Egyptian just happens to match the King James Version errors and weird choices. Alright. And then the last one, it was good enough for the King James of the Bible. The Book of Mormon Isaiah is not and has never been identical to the King James Version. It's widely accepted that after Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery finished the translation, having a punctuation and all, they relied on the King James Version to help. So, is that true? Is the reason why the Book of Mormon seems to match the King James Version all these different times is because they were using it to help their translation? Well, let's take a look. Here is a witness account from David Whitmer. He says Joseph Smith would put the seer stone into a hat and put his face into the hat, drawing it closely around his face to exclude the light, and then in the darkness, spiritual light would shine. Then he goes on, further in the text, he says, Joseph would read off the English to Oliver Cowdery, who was his principal scribe, and when it was written down and repeated to Brother Joseph to see if it was correct, then the word would disappear, and another character with the interpretation would appear. So if you understand what he's saying here, is Smith is staring into a stone, and there is a Book of Mormon character appearing before his eyes. I guess a hieroglyph, because they say it's Egyptian, and and then an English word would appear beneath it, and Joseph Smith would say the word, and Cowdery would repeat the word to see if it was correct. Joseph, I guess, would confirm, then the word would disappear, and then another character, another English translation would appear. So there's no mention in any of the witness accounts that they used the King James Version, and on top of that, why would they need to? Because according to them, it looks like they're being pretty careful. There's more evidence of this, at least according to the narrative that these people want to present. Emma Smith, who acted as an earlier scribe for Joseph, she claims, when my husband was translating the Book of Mormon, I wrote a part of it, and he dictated each sentence word for word. And when he came to proper names he could not pronounce or long words, he spelled them out, and while I was writing them, if I made any mistake in spelling, he would stop me and correct my spelling, although it was impossible for him to see how I was writing them down at the time. So Joseph Smith, I guess to the power of the Holy Spirit, or his psychic ability, knew when she was making mistakes, and he would correct the mistakes. Okay? But let's go back to Nathan, who says maybe they were missing words, or they had misspellings, or something was the problem. The feng shui was off, something went wrong, and so Smith is well known, widely accepted, that Joseph Smith and Oliver Crowdery finished translation with the help of the King James Version. I think the problem is it's not widely accepted. There are no witness accounts that mention anything about the King James Version, and actually, if you look online, you'll even find some Mormon apologetics where they deny that Smith even owned the King James Bible. So on the one hand, they want to argue that there's no King James Bible. On the other hand, after apparently giving up right away and accepting that the Book of Mormon does contain King James errors, all of a sudden they want to say, well, that's because they used the King James Version to correct a divine translation, which Smith obtained word for word and psychically knew when there were problems and to fix them. Does that make any sense to you? And it gets worse from there. It was really only the beginning. So not only do we have like issues like about down versus about not down, maybe I would say that once could be a coincidence, twice could be a coincidence, but look, Smith even copied down the italics from the King James Bible. So just so you understand, when it's in italicized, those are not found in the original translation. The italics are used by the translators to indicate that these are words they are inserting into the text in order to provide more clarity. So Smith somehow, you can just read it yourself, and of course Nephi copies the same language, and the writers over at CES, they note, in the above example, 2 Nephi 19:1, dated in the Book of Mormon to be around 550 BC, quotes nearly verbatim the 1611 AD translation of Isaiah 9:1, including the translator's italicized words. And here's a kicker. Additionally, Joseph qualified the sea as the Red Sea. So for whatever reason, he added the Red Sea. Maybe he probably memorized it while reading it out to Cowdery. For some reason, he added the Red Sea to it. But the problem with that is that Christ quoted Isaiah in Matthew 4:14-15 and did not mention the Red Sea. Red Sea is not found in any source manuscripts, and the Red Sea is 250 miles away. So not only does Smith have the italics, he's got his geography all messed up. And then there's another example, this one time between Malachi and 3 Nephi. They quote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words that were in italics. So in the above example, they write, the King James translators added 7 italicized words not found in the source Hebrew manuscripts to its English translation. Why does the Book of Mormon dated 1200 years prior, contained the exact identical 7 italicized words of 17th century translators? Good question. So the Book of Mormon is this divinely inspired book. It is the most correct book of any on earth. According to these guys, they start off with the idea that it's ridiculous, it's debunked, that's completely stupid. The idea that Smith plagiarized King James Version, and then after a little bit of pushback, all of a sudden, yeah, you try creating a text in less than 3 months in a single draft without any errors.